In this age of new normal, online is not your only option. Because new normal means new learning modalities and new learning possibilities. Let Vibal make learning offline possible with Smart Class. Smart Class contains pre-made daily modules sequenced according to M.A.Ed's budgeted teaching and learning calendar. Each module has a specific lesson duration and has day markers to guide parents and teachers in the asynchronous learning of learners. Inside the modules available in Smart Class, you will find the following elements. First, learning competencies are identified in the module openers. Kickstarters are available to test students' prior knowledge on the subject matter. This set of activities, found at the beginning of each lesson, may also serve as motivational activities. Parents of preschool to grade 2 students will also find notes to parents which contain tips and pointers on how they can guide their child while learning at home. Redefine your students' learning experience with the integration of augmented reality technology into images and illustrations available in Smart Class, making learning more interactive and exciting. At the end of each module, Long Quiz is also available to assess students' understanding of the lesson. Smart Class also features Wrap Up, a lesson ender activity that applies the constructivism theory of learning. In Wrap Up, students are expected to summarize the lesson on their own using a graphic organizer. You may also evaluate the quality of your students' learning by letting them practice their learning in real life through GRASP's formatted performance tasks. The content of Smart Class is designed for the entire academic year, and it is available for 5 major subjects. All aligned with M.A.Ed's K-12 curriculum and covers the most essential learning competencies prescribed by M.A.Ed. Secure your own copy of Smart Class before classes open. Contact marketing@vibalgroup.com to know more.
Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Facebook Live learning session. For the discussion today, the topic will be on responding to students' behavioral issues at home. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kavibal? And now, to proceed with our webinar this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. Julius Bernal Jr. is an educator and behaviorist by heart. He has an extensive practice in education for 16 years as a classroom teacher, case manager, consultant, team head, and researcher. He is committed to the education and care of children and adults with special needs. He obtained his bachelor's degree in psychology at the Seliman University, cum laude. Soon after, he completed his master's degree in education, major in special education at the University of the Philippines. He is currently working on his doctorate program at the University of Makati, taking up Doctor of Education, major in innovative educational management. He recently completed his comprehensive exam and currently enrolled for his dissertation. At present, he is the Programs and Training Director of the J.A. Bernal Center for Exceptional Children in General Santos City. He also engages in consultations and partnership with educational institutions in Manila, Jensan, Davao, Iloilo, and Bacolod. Teacher JB is known for his expertise in analyzing and managing behavior issues of typical and atypical students. Moreover, equipping educators in efficiently managing their traditional classrooms and transitioning to the 21st century education practices. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Mr. Julius Bernal Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for inviting me to share my advocacy in terms of helping children deal with their behavior issues at home and in school. Please allow me to share my screen so we can start with the lecture. I'd like to know if I am loud and clear. Can anyone give me a feedback?
Yes po sir, you can be heard naman po.
Thank you. So today's topic is responding to students' behavior issues at home. If you notice, I use the word respond. A lot of us, if we teach our students, we're always reactive. We react to situations, we react to behaviors. For today, I'd like to advocate for parents and teachers to look, listen, and wonder in response to behavior issues. I need for us to decipher as to why are students behaving this way? And I'd like us to understand these behaviors so that we can come up with effective or efficient strategies to manage them. I am hopeful that at the end of the session, you're able to apply looking, listening, and wondering about students' behavior. So, what is the new normal at home? Because of COVID 19, there were a lot of changes that happened, and these are in relation to education, the new normal would be online learning, that's asynchronous and synchronous. There's distance learning, modular, TV and radio programs. I'm very happy that we're able to come up with innovations such as these in response to the new normal. However, because of these, there's change. And we all know not everyone is comfortable with change. What are the implications of these changes in the home, the family dynamics, and relationships? Change impacts a lot in the students' lives. First, for so long, they were on vacation mode, and now it's time to transition to school mode. Some students are very challenged with this change, and for them, it's harder to start with a new structure at home, knowing the new modality. So some students may be uncomfortable having their caregivers or parents or extended family members as their teachers. Most especially that the manner that the lessons are being presented might be different. For parents, the lack of training, the limited resources, and their readiness might be an issue or a problem that can give them stress. It also impact on the family dynamics. A lot of parents that I work with are working parents. So it's really challenging for them to now divide their time between being a teacher mom and also a working mom. And more importantly, the territory issue linked in compliance. What does this mean? This means that the teaching and learning experiences now happens at home. And this home is actually the territory of our students. Why would I listen to you? Why would I follow you? I'm at home. There are associated behaviors in the home that might actually give parents a hard time eliciting compliance from their children, especially that there are routines or associated schedules and activities in the home. So, in response to change, a lot of parents are angry, some are disappointed. A lot of parents that I spoke with all over the country, they're very stressed. They're also fearful. Some are worried, but some are motivated. If you look at these emotions, a lot of it are really negative. There's a lot of negative associations to change, and that is okay. A lot of us are really uncomfortable if there is change in our environment, especially that we feel we are not ready for it. Some parents, they feel motivated because they have issues putting their children in the regular schools because they feel like there are issues that can be very challenging, such as bullying, or there are parents who's concerned of the quality of education that their children receive. That's why they feel motivated. They feel motivated having to focus on their kids, teaching them the lessons, ensuring quality and a balance of rapport building and relationship building in the home. So, if we are confronted with change, we feel stress. This is widely used. So, what is stress? This is a biological or physiological response experience when we encounter a threat or a stressor that we feel we do not have the resources to deal with. And usually, if there is stress in our lives, there is what we call a stress response. It is a physiological reaction that occurs in the presence of something that is terrifying, either mentally or physically. For some parents, they feel not ready, they feel unequipped. So, the changes brought about by the new normal can be stressful. Imagine having to teach your children at home without even prior knowledge of the how to be an effective teacher. It can be scary, and I assure parents watching us right now that it is okay. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel threatened. In fact, when teachers come to me and when I assign them a case and they feel so scared of the case, I always assure them that it's okay to feel scared because when you are scared, you are motivated to do your best. I rather you are scared and motivated to do your best rather than being too confident and when the situation arises, we are unable to respond to the student's needs. So a stressful situation can trigger a stress hormones that produces well-orchestrated physiological changes like heart pounding, quick breathing, tense muscles, and the appearance of sweat. This combination of the body's reaction to stress is also what we call in students fight or flight mechanism. I'd like to focus more on the fight or flight mechanism. If our students are threatened by the change, threatened by the difficulty of our lessons, threatened by the thought that they are unable to do the task, or threatened by their incompetency. A lot of students, they're very much aware that they are struggling. So, in response to this stressor, some students would fight or flight. So, what is fight? Literally, this is when students fight the authority to be able to avoid the task at hand. This is when students contest with the authority, which is the teacher in the regular classroom. However, in the context of the home, this is the parent. A lot of our parents nowadays are of my age. I would say the parents nowadays are those children who grew up before having a hard time with school, because at that time our parents will not give in. Our parents will always encourage or even force us to do our best. At times our parents will not even assist us. Growing up, we have these experiences that we are not given what we want. So now, when we became parents, this is the problem. The problem is we do not want our children to experience whatever negative experiences that we have associated with schoolwork growing up. So, if a student might fight, the parent might just say, okay, maybe we can do it next time. Oh, let me do it for you. And that's sad from a behavioral perspective because it now reinforces the negative or inappropriate behavior. Parents are often intimidated by their children kasi nakakaawa, Teacher JB. Kaya pinagbigyan ko na. What they do not know is that if kahit isang beses na napagbigyan natin yung bata, tumatatak po ito sa mga bata. And every time they feel stressed or they feel threatened by a difficult activity, a non-preferred activity, or a long task, they might use this strategy of the fight strategy. Now, ano na naman po yung flight? Yung flight strategy, this is when students avoid or literally walk away from the teaching and learning experience. Flight is when students just literally walk away and would not want to do the task at hand. So, in conclusion, there is this physiological response to stressors. Students will fight or students will just fly. So, what do we do, Teacher JP? I will discuss further, and I hope the tips that I'm going to give you today will be helpful in your practice, most especially in your relationship with your children. Because for me, the core of teaching is really relationship, the trust that we give each other in order for the teaching and learning experience to be productive. Stress or stressors are often manifested in child's behavior. Sometimes students will not fight, they will not fly because of the respect, the trust, and the assurance that we provide the kids. They will attempt and they will do their best to try, knowing mom is there, mom is gonna make it easy for me, mom will help. However, in the learning process, some behaviors might come out, and I need everyone to pay attention to that. Because even though these behaviors are subtle, it's something that we need to manage just so it does not escalate. So, what is behavior? By the book, they say it has to be specific, observable, and measurable. Now, when we say specific, it's very important how we define the behavior. You need to describe what is actually happening versus interpreting what you see. If you see on the slide actual behavior versus interpretation, there's a fine line. When I do my consultations, I noticed that a lot of the teachers that I work with or parents that I work with, they report to me their interpretations of the actual behavior. Oftentimes, they tell me, Teacher JB, ang hyper ng anak ko. Teacher JB, ang tamad-tamad niya. Teacher JB, ang likot-likot niya, ang tigas ng ulo. If I hear these words, I always tell parents, oh, those are your interpretation. Ano po yung totoong nangyari or actual na nangyayari? Can you be more specific? Ano yung naobserbahan mo? Can you just describe to me what happened? In that way, it's easier for me to analyze the behavior. At the same time, you are guiding the parents or the teachers to be objective. Kasi po, minsan, kapag nagiging stress na tayo, nagiging subjective tayo as to how we see the behavior. And as much as possible, if we are to analyze, we needed to be objective about this. So just describe what you're seeing, especially if you are brainstorming about this behavior with your friend or with your colleague or with your husband. Kasi importante po na nasi-share din natin ito to someone else who sees the behavior. In that way, you have broader perspective as to how you see and analyze the behavior. Kasi po, kung sa umpisa pa lang na mali yung or naging interpretation, it now affects kasi our strategies. You need to have a good definition or operational definition of the behavior. And this has to be confirmed by someone else to make sure we are attacking or managing the right behavior and not the interpretation. More importantly, hindi naman po kasi fair para sa bata na sabihin natin, ay, ang likot-likot niya. With the kids that I work with, alam ko po na yung mga batang lumilikot, physiologically kailangan ng katawan nilang lumikot. At nakakatulong yun sa kanila para mag-isip. Yun naman pong ibang struggling learners, baka may meron silang difficulties. So hindi po basta-basta nating masasabing, ay, ang tamad-tamad naman ng anak ko. Baka pala merong underlying deficit na kailangan tutukan at i-resolve para ma-resolve natin yung behavior. Kasi minsan po, yung behavior ng bata, regardless if with a diagnosis, without a diagnosis, in public school or private school, lagi ko pong nakikita yon na yung behavior nakalink po doon sa cognitive ability or ito po yung tinatawag natin na levels of performance in reading, math, writing, language. So, kailangan mindful din tayo. Lagi kong sinasabi, di ba, wonder. Bakit kaya siya malikot ngayon? Is this fight? Is this flight? Bakit kaya parang ang tamad-tamad niya? Mag-wonder ulit. Mahirap ba tong lesson ko? Masyado ba akong madaming pinapagawa sa kanya? O hindi lang siya sanay na nag-work kami kasi sanay siya na yung work associated with school or associated with teacher, ngayon wala akong choice. Kung hindi, kailangan naming mag-adapt to the new normal. This is very important for me. One of my one of my mentors, she taught me that behavior is communication. And since that day, dala-dala ko po ito. A lot of times tayo, dahil nagiging reactive tayo, hindi natin napapansin what the child is trying to communicate to us. And remember, communication is both verbal and nonverbal. The child may not tell us, Teacher JB, nahihirapan ako. Mommy, ang hirap-hirap, ang haba-haba. Pero baka po kasi yung katawan niya is trying to tell us that. How? Halimbawa, hindi po siya nagpe-pay attention. Hindi po siya sumusunod sa mga instruction natin. So, kailangan po tandaan natin ito. Behavior is communication. What is the child trying to tell me? So we wonder. That's why important po yung look, listen, and wonder. Kasi tayo bilang magulang, we always react. I'm sorry, I don't like that. I don't want that to be a habit of everyone. Kailangan po sana, if not responsive, magiging proactive po tayo. Kasi nangyayari, yun pong react lang tayo ng react, parang nagiging band-aid. Hindi po natin talaga nasusolve yung problem. Whereas you are responsive or you, okay, look, anong nangyayari? Okay, hindi siya sumusunod. You listen to the child. Ano bang tinatry niyang sabihin sa akin using his words and his actions? And then we wonder, bakit? Bakit? Kasi the wondering will now help us ano kaya yung effective strategy na pwede kong i-apply sa sitwasyon na ito. And again, hindi naman po tayo professional teachers at home. We are parents. Sometimes din kasi it's so hard to draw the line being a parent and being a mommy teacher. Naiintindihan ko po, it's really challenging. Kasi minsan hindi mo alam kailan ako magiging firm, Teacher JB. Or Teacher JB, nagmamakaawa, pagod na raw siya. Talaga bang pagod? Or this is just an excuse to flight or to avoid. Please feel free to type in if you have questions so far. So ano ba yung behavior? Sabi po ng mentor ko, lahat ng behaviors nalalearn. Kaya pwede naman siyang i-unlearn. I notice in my practice in terms of dealing with behavior problems, all behaviors are learned kasi na-reinforce. The good news is, it can be unlearned, but it takes a lot of time, patience, and consistency. Kasi hindi naman po pwede na one day ka lang firm at consistent, the next day hindi na. You know, the kids are very smart. Magaling din sila mag-manipulate ng teacher or ng tao, lalo na yung parent na talagang pagbibigyan sila lagi. So we need to be mindful of that. So children learn behaviors as they interact with the people and the environment. Sometimes, kaya nila nalalearn kasi na-reinforce. For example, nasa grocery si mommy at si baby girl, tapos sabi ni baby girl, gusto ko ng candy. Tapos sabi ni mommy, ay wala sa budget or wala sa listahan. So iiyak si baby girl. Naawa naman si mommy. Sige na, nakakahiya. Bilhin na lang natin yung candy. Kawawa naman. I'm sure maraming nakaka-relate sa inyo. Napakasimple at napakaliit ng bagay. And this experience happens almost every day. Wherein, napagbibigyan po natin sila. Hindi natin alam, eto, nare-reinforce na yung psyche ng bata. Iisipin ng bata, ay ganun pala, pag mayroon akong gusto, iyak lang ako, makukuha ko rin agad. So children, learn to adopt behaviors. Kasi hindi naman nila alam na, ay mali pala yun. natutunan lang niya or na-associate nila. Remember, kids in terms of comprehension, when they're young, they associate experiences with behaviors. So children adopt behaviors that appear to them meet the expectations of others, and they persist because attention is given and they are being reinforced. Sometimes I have teachers or parents coming into me, ay nako JB, matigas ang ulo ng anak ko. Nakikipag-away yan sa akin at nakikipagtalo. So ang una kong tanong lagi, ma'am, ano po yung ginagawa ninyo? Siyempre, parang sabi niya, siyempre, pag sinigawan ako ng anak ko, sisigaw din ako. Tapos sabi ko sa kanya, so pag sumigaw ka, sisigaw rin yung anak mo. Oo, teacher, tapos hindi ako papatalo, sisigaw ako lalo. So pataasan kami. Sabi ko, that's a problem. Sometimes kids engage in these behavioral issues or behavioral problem because attention is given to them. More importantly, they are co-regulating. I always tell parents, if you want to teach good behaviors, if you want to manage inappropriate behavioral issues, then you need to model it. You need to regulate yourself first. Kasi a lot of times, the kids just pick up from us. Ganun si mami eh. So ginaya ko. Ngayon po, meron po tayong sinasabing social imitation. A lot of times, nagagaya kasi yun ang nakikita. Yun yung nakikita, akala yun yung tama. So I always tell parents the first strategy to someone who's throwing a tantrum or having a meltdown is to be quiet. Look at the child. Listen. Wonder. Bakit? Bakit? Kasi po, kung tayong mga magulang galit, ang mangyayari, tatapunan ka rin ng galit ng anak mo at pareho po kayong magagalit sa isa't isa. Para lang yang mag-asawa or magsyota. Pag sinigawan ka ng husband mo, syempre, ang initial reaction ng wife, sisigaw din hanggang sa magsisigawan sila. Pero 'di ba, if somebody treated you with kindness, with calmness, you also mirror the same emotion. So as parent, teacher, it's very important that we do our best to show the child ano po yung expected behavior. Mahirap kasi yung magsasabi ka lang, oh, dapat you sit, you wait, you look, focus, follow instruction, and then you don't do it. Again, kids look up to us. We are their models. So, paano po natin malalaman na, JB, etong kaharap ko, problema na pala? Kasi, di ba po, some kids can be malikot. Some kids, dahil spoiled, matigas ang ulo. So, para siyang normal na nangyayari. So, paano natin malalaman na, ay, mukhang problema na pala itong kaharap ko? Well, number one, if it interferes with learning. If you are unable to successfully complete your task, mapapaisip ka doon. If it interferes with the quality of life, learning opportunities, relationship with others, that's another red flag. Also, if the child is unable to maintain the skills or generalize across all settings, activities, persons, it's something to think about. And more importantly, there are certain behaviors that leads to self-injury and injury to others. Some children can be very physical. Maybe they pick it up from the TV. Maybe they learn it in their previous experiences. Who knows? So these are your criteria to say na ay mukhang may problema ako, kailangan kong tutukan yung behavior ng anak ko. Hindi na siya maganda. Again, it affects relationships. And more importantly, tinitingnan rin natin yung frequency, intensity, latency, and duration. Gaano ba kadalas nangyayari ang behavior na ito? Gaano ka-intense? Mild, moderate, or severe? Yung latency, gaano katagal yung time na nangyayari siya in response to a stressor? Or duration, gaano katagal tong meltdown niya or pagwawala? 20 minutes, 30 minutes? So iniisip po natin yon at tinitingnan po natin yon to evaluate a behavior. So ano yung possible functions of a behavior problem? So in the context of the home, in the context of learning from home, unang-una makikita natin avoidance from the task at hand. Maaari pong masyadong mahirap yung lesson, masyadong mahaba. Minsan po, na-overwhelm din yung mga bata sa dami ng synchronous at asynchronous tasks that they need to complete. And most of our students, they really have a hard time with executive functioning. And that is their capacity to organize, prioritize, sequence tasks, problem solving. Kasi po, yun nga, it's the parenting. Masyado silang sanay na nandyan lagi si mommy to solve my problems. Nandyan lagi si teacher na tutulong sa akin. Hindi talaga natin sila na-reinforce or natuturuan how to be more independent. Unlike nung kapanahon po natin, nung estudyante tayo, sasabihan ka lang ng nanay mo, hindi mo alam, di magbasa ka. Or tingnan mo sa dictionary. Ngayon kasi, we are so all over our kids. Some parents are even helicopter parents. That we reinforce this learned helplessness. Kahit naman po, kaya talaga nila. So again, wonder, talaga bang mahirap yung pinapagawa ko sa anak ko? Or nag-iinarte lang siya? Wonder, nagbibigay naman ako ng breaks in between activities. Or wonder, bakit siya nag-a-avoid? Meron bang mahirap sa pinapagawa ko? Ano ba yung dapat nating tutukan at i-prioritize? Some children, because it is their parents who are teaching them, we have what we call attention seeking. Kasi dati, pre-COVID, laging wala, hindi nakikita, very minimal yung interaction. So now that they see their parents more often, and then their parents are actually teaching them a lot of attention seeking or pagpapapansin. Number 3, meron po kaming tinatawag na I want behavior. Ito po yung ini-insist ng bata kung ano yung gusto nila. Thinking makakalusot, thinking mapagbibigyan sila ng kanilang parents. And number 4, changes in the environment. Minsan po, meron tayong mga hindi napapansin na very subtle changes pero may impact at may effect na pala ito sa mga bata. At nakikita natin yan sa mga behavioral issues na pinapakita nila. Kasi maaaring, for example, dati naman si teacher tinutulungan ako o bakit si mommy hindi ako tinutulungan. Or minsan po, it's a combination. You can have 1 or 2 functions or 3 functions in a behavioral problem. Or minsan naman, it starts off as an I want behavior, tapos na-reinforce or napagbigyan ni mommy, then now the child uses that to avoid the task at hand. So, ano yung guidelines? So, nakwento ni Teacher JB na, okay, may change and some changes can impact on behavior. And physiologically, child has this innate nature to fight or flight. At naisip ko habang nagkukwento ako, nakikinig kayo, I'm sure nai-imagine ninyo ano ba yung mga nai-encounter kong issues sa anak ko. I'm given 50 minutes, so I may not be able to share everything. But I did my best to synthesize, to ensure that I'm able to teach you to respond versus just simply reacting. Some of these tips, maybe, alam nyo na, alam ko naman yan, JB, bakit hindi nag-work? Then, the answer is, how consistent are you? Kasi yun yung mahirap. Parang, ginagawa mo yung strategy, after 3 days, nakalimutan mo kasi may naisip kang iba or busy ka. Kami po, as clinicians, when we try a strategy, we need to employ it for 2 weeks. And then after we record our data, if it's working, continue. If it's not working, we need to change. Kaya importante yung word na measurable kanina. You need to measure the behavior para malaman mo, tama ba yung strategy ko? Kasi yun yung mga tanong na, ginawa ko yan, it did not work. Paano ko malalaman na mag-change ako ng strategy? Usually after 2 weeks. And we employ one strategy at a time para madali pong mag-monitor. Kasi kung sabay-sabay nyo po siyang ginawa, mahihirapan po tayo mag-monitor at mag-record ng data. So hindi na natin alam why it worked or what strategy worked. Again, sana responsive po tayo, hindi lang yung reactive. Example lang reactive, pag yung estudyante hindi nakikinig, ay nako, yung kapatid ko tinuturuan yung anak niya, ay sisigawan, that's a reaction. Pag gagalitan, that's a reaction. Sana more responsive po tayo. Instead of pagalitan mo yung bata, kawawa na nga struggling na nga yung learner mo, pinagalitan mo pa, I wonder ano po yung effect nun sa self-esteem ng bata. So, I hope we can learn to be more responsive. So, it's very important for me to build rapport. I think I have 3 guidelines. Bakit rapport, Teacher JB? I'd like to capitalize on relationship when I manage behaviors. Sabi ko nga kanina, importante po na we stay as calm as possible so we can model desired or expected behaviors. Also, in building rapport, we need to provide positive learning experiences. Bakit ito importante? Sabi ng sister-in-law ko, ang hirap pala pag yung magulang yung magtuturo sa anak kasi nakakasira ng relationship. Because as parents, we have this expectation sa mga anak natin at pag hindi natin makikita, nagagalit, naiinis tayo. So, totoo po yun, nangyayari yun, I'm sure na-experience niyo po yun. So yung akin, I want to invest so much on rapport kasi po, if you have a good rapport with your student or your child, then the child learns to trust you. If the child learns to trust you, the child learns to follow or compliance. And if the child is able to follow you, it's easier to teach, especially that the child feels safe in this teaching and learning environment, that the child feels safe and supported by the parent or the teacher. So how do we build rapport? Always stay calm. Pag malapit ka ng mainis, please temporarily withdraw yourself from the situation. So this is by providing learning experiences, positive learning experiences with the child. Now this is subjective. Positive learning experiences, depende po yan sa edad. So if it's a younger child, I do a lot of play-based intervention. If it's a little bigger child, parang I ask them, how can I reward you? How can I help you out? So consider the child's interests. You need to look into ano bang interest niya that I can use as his rewards or consequence for completing his tasks or for following me, the parent teacher. Also, reflect on the child's strengths and weaknesses. As parents po and as teachers, alam po natin kung ano yung strengths and weaknesses ng bata. So let's use his strengths when teaching weaknesses. For example, ang strength ng bata, alam po natin na visual learner siya. pero struggling reading and reading comprehension. So what we can do to assist the child in his reading task is to learn to visualize what he is reading. In that way, it's easier for the child to comprehend whatever he is reading. And again, very important, we need to listen to the child. We need to wonder, hala, bakit kaya hindi niya natapos yung test? Dahil ba poor yung attention? Dahil ba mahirap yung activity? How can I be supportive as a parent? How can I reassure my child na it's okay, we can do better? I think that we need to take the child's cues to engage. Ito po yung sinasabi kong listen to the child. Some behaviors are communicating to us without us being mindful of. Kasi nga, reactive tayo na instead na mag-look, listen, and wonder tayo sa bata, ay, pinagalitan na natin. Ganun po. So what else? Use positive and encouraging language instead of saying, ang tamad-tamad mo kasi, or ang you're lazy. So instead of that, maybe you can use, you are making me proud with your efforts to try in this difficult subject. I hope we can find a way to still be positive about the negative experience. In that way, napapangalagaan po natin yung feelings ng anak. Or pwedeng sabihin natin na, I know this is hard for you, but you really made me happy for trying. I like it also that we're labeling emotions. If you notice, I'm big on labeling emotions. Bakit po? Kasi po, sabi nila, social and emotional learning is the foundation of success in academics. Sabi po nila na kapag yung bata is emotionally mature and attuned with himself, magiging mature po siya enough to deal with his concerns or issues in academics. So, to start with social and emotional learning, ang pinaka-foundation po nito dapat aware yung bata. Ano ba yung mga emosyon ko? What makes me feel this way? Or ano yung mga social expectations, awareness of self, awareness of social expectations, problem solving, ganun po. Kasi po, if you have a child na buo emotionally at hindi po siya na-damage dahil lagi nating pinapagalitan, the child is more likely to be the child is reinforced, encouraged, and motivated to perform. So it's very important that we are very sensitive with the emotions of the kids. And yung impact din minsan ng behavior natin sa kanila. Kasi minsan we're coming in too strong, hindi natin alam kung ano na yung epekto, at kadalasan po sa mga bata, magaling po sila magtago. In fact, I have one student, he tells me, you know what, Teacher JB, my mom doesn't know that I'm angry at her because she always makes me pagalitan. And I was like, oh, you have to tell her. You need to tell your mom your emotions kasi hindi nga maganda yon na kinikim-kim lang ng bata or the child is really affected by what we do. So behavior management is not just managing the child. We as teachers, as parents, we also need to manage ourselves because what we show them is what they learn or what's being reflected back on us. Always make the child feel understood and supported. And again, avoid blaming the child for his difficulties. It is not his fault if meron po siyang weaknesses. And instead of blaming, we really need to be more supportive, find creative ways. Kasi yun po yung trait ng mga teachers. I think teachers are very creative. Kami pong teachers, gagawa at gagawa ng paraan, or we need to be creative to ensure that the child is able to get the topic or get the subject. So there are a lot of strategies. You can do experiential learning, you can use visuals, you can use media or technology kasi that can help engage the child. So also the use of positive reinforcement. Sana we can acknowledge, praise, or reward children for their efforts. And sana ma-match din natin yung effort na binibigay nila doon sa reward. Hindi naman pwedeng trip to the USA tapos ang effort niya lang is tapusin yung homework. So, dapat po, ano lang, match sila at the same time, wag rin pabalik-balik yung reward mo para hindi magsawa yung bata. Dapat may variety rin. So, may changes din. So in building rapport, if applicable, play-based learning experiences are always helpful. For bigger kids, I incorporate gamification. It engages them. It makes learning fun. Also use visuals to assist children to process information and be consistent. Sasabihin sa akin ng parents, JB, I tried your advice. It's not working. Like yung sinasabi, you need to be consistent. Or maybe at this time, the child is still unlearning certain habits. Kasi ganyan naman si mami, nagpa-promise tapos hindi binibigay. Kasi minsan, we get so busy, nag-promise ka pala, o sige anak, gawin mo yung assignment mo ha, tapos bigyan kita ice cream mamaya. Tapos biglang hindi natin nagawa. Minsan kasi it demotivates the kids especially if parents are not consistent in terms of what they say, what they promise, or what they do. And in a busy home with complicated family dynamics, being consistent can be really challenging, especially if you started inconsistent. Ang hirap din po as a parent to unlearn certain habits, especially if you're trying to be firm, especially if you're trying to discipline a child. And again, if and when you are able to build that rapport, that relationship outside of the academics and within the context of the academics, you have to value the trust. Di po ba in any relationship, kahit sa inyong mag-asawa, tiwala yung importante. Kasi pag may tiwala ka kay mister, kahit anong papagawa niya sa'yo, gagawin mo. So, ganun din sa bata. Kahit anong papagawa mo sa bata, dahil nga may tiwala siya na, I know mommy will support me kahit nahirapan ako. I know mommy will give me a reward later. And then you are consistent, the child will follow. So, capitalize on your relationship, and communication is very important. I hope you are in a relationship with your children or with your students wherein you are at a level that the child feels safe to communicate to you, Ma'am, nahihirapan ako. Dad, paano ko gawin tong algebra? Kasi ang hirap-hirap. Suko na ako. I hope that you are in that level of relationship when you can allow them to open up to you and they will feel safe. Na hindi sila natatakot magsumbong, pagod na po ako, hirap na po ako. Kasi to be honest, for a child to sustain sitting and focus, that takes a lot of mental effort. And you are exerting mental effort to sustain your sitting and your focus. Plus, you have another mental effort of processing the material that's been given to you. That's too much. That's why sometimes I can give body breaks in between tasks or a snack time. Kasi hindi naman yung, lalo na sa bahay, no, we have so much free time. Ang habol naman kasi natin talaga is yung quality ng experience, not really the quantity, dami ng modules na nagagawa, but really the quality, looking at the positive rapport, the relationship, communication, and the output. I think this is the last reflective teaching. At the end of the day, as a teacher, I always reflect on myself. What can I do better? Ano ba yung dapat kong ginawa? It should be a habit that most teachers should apply. Kasi po, when we graduate from school and pass the LEP, hindi naman po tayo nagtapos sa school na magaling. And we are in a field of education wherein ang daming bagong developments and daming innovations that we as teachers or teacher mom should be open to, and that we should also reflect on. How can I be better? How can I improve my relationship with my child? Ay, parang mali yata yung nasigawan ko siya kanina. What can I do to make it better? So yun po yung reflective teaching. So how do we elicit compliance? Ang lagi nilang reklamo, teach, hindi sumusunod sa akin yung anak ko. So, um, common and acceptable kasi nga sanay sila sa bahay na sila yung boss. Eh biglang pagdating ngayon sa bahay, hala, may structure na, may school pala na set up. Number one, do not break the trust. When you promise something, give it. Um, find a way to make sure that in keeping this trust intact, you have a good relationship, you have good communication, and you're being responsive and sensitive to your student or to your child. Be consistent at all times possible and do not make false promises. So, as a teacher or as a teacher mom, it's important that when you sit with your child to to instruct or to teach, you need to have goals in mind. Yung goals po, madali lang naman siya. Hindi naman siya kailangan maging professional teacher for you to come up with a good goal. Yung importante lang po dito sa goal, ito po yung long term. Action-based sana siya. So for example, by the end of the month, I want my child to sustain sitting so he's able to follow instructions and then complete his task. So yung SMART naman po, yung objectives mo dapat specific, measurable, attainable at realistic and time-bound yung mga objectives na isusort na nagkagawin natin for the student. Again, hindi po tayo professional teacher. Wala rin po tayo sa school. First time po natin itong ginawa. Minsan wala rin nagturo sa atin how to be a teacher, ma'am. So, in terms of creating objectives, ay gusto ko siya umupo. Siguro ano lang, mag-sit ka lang for 5 minutes para makakomplete ka ng isang page or isang worksheet. I think that's realistic. I think that's time-bound. Huwag po tayong magpadala sa pressure na dapat kailangan ganito, ganyan. Kasi po, advantage na po tayo na nasa bahay tayo. We're homeschool. So, you can actually pace the child. And pace is very critical. Because naka-self-paced yung mga bata. They are more comfortable, they are more relaxed, they are more likely to follow and comply. Sometimes we talk a lot. I always train my teachers to give brief and concise instructions. Kung pwede, one step. Halimbawa, get notebook or do your homework. Kasi po minsan, pag masyado tayong maraming sinasabi, some kids are really distracted externally or internally. Baka mamaya iniisip pa nila sa utak nila yung mga pinapanood nilang cartoons. So, it's also important that you give directional instructions. Ibig sabihin, yung ano bang gusto mong mangyari. Pag merong batang malikot, takbo na takbo, sabihin ng nanay, ay ano ka ba, ang likot-likot mo, takbo ka ng takbo, takbo ka ng takbo. Pero hindi mo naman siya in-instruct kung ano talagang gusto mong gawin. Instead of saying that, maybe you can just say, anak, sit down. You have to be direct. Kung ano ba yung gusto mong outcome or makuha sa bata. Kasi minsan may mga side comments pa po tayo, lalo na those who are very reactive. So how else? If you have a good relationship, I think the first and then instructions will really work. Anak, first, gawin mo yung homework and then bigyan kita ng play break. Or anak, tapusin mo yung page 96 tapos ice cream tayo mamaya. So, clear. Very clear yung expectations. So because the expectation is clear, or you can visualize that pa, you can write it down para nakikita niya at visually reminded yung bata. Because the expectations are clear, the child is more likely to follow. Tapos may note ka pa doon, anak, pag nahirapan ka, call mommy. So first and then instructions, or first and then strategy. That's what we call it in ABA. Also, sana po walang bribery. Kasi yung mga parents, mahilig sila na, o sige anak ka, tapusin mo yan, tapos bigyan kita ng ganyan. Ang gusto kasi natin compliance. Yung willingly, gusto niyang sumunod kasi I want to make my mom happy because I respect my mommy teacher. Not because natakot ako, kasi ayoko po noon, yung nananakot tayo. Kasi hindi po maganda na sinunod ka nga, pero dahil takot na takot sa'yo, gusto mo again yung bata happy during this learning experience. So the first and then strategy will really help the child. First do this, and then I want you to be very supportive of the child. Anticipate a lot, knowing the weaknesses. So anticipate mo alin yung mga activities na kailangan mo siyang tabihan at tutukan para mag-model ka ng response or magpa-prompt ka or magpa-provide ka ng assistance. Dahil nga po, nasa context tayo ng homeschool environment, differentiating instruction is also acceptable. Sometimes po, especially for struggling learners, we can differentiate the instruction or modify when it is necessary. So I think with the collaboration of your supervisors or coordinators, I'm sure they can assist you how to differentiate so as the child is able to experience success. Kasi po kung kayo po yung bata at puro failure na lang ng failure, nakakapagod din naman at wala na tayong motivation to do better. So, important po talaga na the children, they experience success, they find joy in the learning so as they're motivated to do it over and over again. Bonus na yung relationship that you are building together. Emotional regulation is very important for me. Kasi sometimes po, yung behaviors ng bata nanggagaling sa parents. Kasi yung parents hindi marunong mag-regulate ng emotions nila. There are also kids who are struggling to control their emotions or to regulate their emotions. Kaya po, nandun sila sa fight reaction to certain problems or difficulties in the teaching and learning situation. So it's very important that we teach our students to label emotions. And maganda rin po if we try to, again, I've said this earlier, to control ourselves in terms of displaying negative emotions. Kasi po, pag nasigawan mo yung bata, karamihan sa mga bata ngayon, magagaling sila, lumalaban, talagang sasagutin ka. You really need to reach co-regulation. Ano po yung co-regulation? Na tayo po bilang parent, kalmado po tayo at nare-reflect at nagko-co-regulate din yung bata. Kasi naman, di ba, pag kinausap ka ng maayos, yung isasagot sa'yo ng bata, maayos din. Kapag supportive ka, yung bata supportive and cooperative din. And again, I cannot stress more enough on look, listen, wait, and wonder. Kasi po, eto pong pag-wonder, eto yung nagtutulong sa atin bakit siya ganun. And in that way, you are able to think, ano ba to? Attention seeking ba to? I want behavior ba to? Ay, pag attention seeking, sige, sabi ni JB, wag daw pansinin, i-redirect lang sa work. Ay, kapag task avoidance, sabi ni JB, kapag nag-avoid ng task kasi nahihirapan, maybe I can do differentiated instruction. I can make it easier for the child. O anak, 3 pages lang instead of 6 pages. Or anak, magsabi ka lang kung gusto mo ng break, bibigyan kita ng break. For parents, you can apply paced breathing techniques. You can you can YouTube that, nandun naman. Well, basically, it's really inhaling 5 seconds, exhaling 7 seconds. Kasi nga, you're trying to regulate yourself na hindi ka magalit at hindi ka reactive para ma-maintain natin yung co-regulation ninyong dalawa, mag-ina, na pareho po kayo kalmado, even if you are in a stressful situation. For smart kids or older kids, if they have behavioral issues, I apply cognitive behavioral technique, CBT, wherein I assist the child, identify the problem. Anak, anong problema? Tapos tatanungin ko siya, is it my problem or your problem? Sasabihin niya, it's my problem. And then I help him, o anak, yung problem mo, ano ba yon? Glitch? It's something you can shake off? Is it a small problem, something you can do by yourself? Or is it a medium problem? It's something you can solve with the assistance of another person? Or is it a big problem? So you need to help the students analyze, process. Sana ideal na sila yung nagka-come up ng problem-solving techniques. Pero kung hindi nila kaya, you can offer to assist them. Kasi we want to have a generation of resilient students. Kasi minsan po sa observation ko sa mga nangyayari ngayon, not all of our students are resilient kasi sanay sila na parents are all over. In fact, ang daming times kung pwede yung parents ang mag-solve ng problema ng mga bata, ganun po yung nangyayari. Hindi po maganda yon long term kasi nangyayari, they won't be as resilient when they have problems on their own when they become adults. So another tip that I can give you is to structure the home. So when you work with your kids, kailangan may physical structure, schedule, and work system. Physical structure, yun po, you arrange or set up the environment that will maximize the attention of the students. Kung napapansin niyo po, wala masyadong distraction, organized din po yung materials. Ayan po. So, para ma-maximize po natin yung attention. Minsan kasi very accessible, ay may laruan or may pagkain, ganyan po. So, kailangan talagang i-structure natin yung physical space that will maximize learning. Okay. Sorry. I have a problem with my connection. So schedule, for smaller kids, you can use picture schedule like this. For bigger kids, pwede naman po written schedule. Again, the schedule helps them get organized. Ano yung first kong gagawin, second, third. At least po may structure or may sinusundan po yung mga bata na, okay, ito lang yung gagawin ko. Tapos nakikita ko sa schedule ko, ay may play break rin naman, may snack break, may movement break. So the child is more likely to follow. So work system is very important, how you systematize the delivery of your lesson. So some, ayan, tawag po nito, naka-trace. So tatlong layer yan, or they use a folder system, wherein lahat ng task naka-folder. I'll just get one folder, I'll open, I'll answer, and then tuck away, then another folder. So nasa sa inyo po yon, how you contextualize depending on the home, the work environment, and how you want to train your child to be independent. Kasi yun po yung key for work system is, how do I teach my child to be independent? I'll end with this. Best thing we can do for kids, instead of teaching them how to be always successful, is to teach them how to respond when they are not successful. For a lot of parents nowadays, I know you're very competitive and I know you just want the best for your kids. So sometimes overlook natin, turuan sila how to respond when they are not successful. Kasi minsan yung nasa isip lang natin, gusto natin maging successful. Tingnan mo ngayon, preschool pa lang may tutor na. Or mga kung anong added extracurricular activities. And I get it. I really understand the context. But I hope we pay more attention and wonder when they are not successful. So that's from Brad Weinstein. Thank you very much, everyone. I had a great time sharing. I wish we had more time together.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we will proceed to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from Rachel DC. How can we help our students and children realize their own personality in order for them to discover for themselves their strengths and weaknesses without influencing them of our personal dreams and goals?
That's a very good question. Usually, for the students that I work with, I really encourage the parents to provide extracurricular activities because I want a balance of academics and non academic activities that the children will enjoy. In that way, they realize what they can do. We should keep in mind that there are a lot of intelligences, and we need to reinforce that. As a parent, we can suggest maybe he can try a music and movement class or an instrument or a sport. Um, just provide positive experiences. In that way, the child will realize and learn, oh, this is something I like to do. This is something I'm good at. I hope that answers the question. It's okay if you have a follow up, I can answer still.
Thank you very much, sir. Our next question is from Paul Zion. What is the most effective way to encourage students to share their thoughts or ideas, especially those shy type students?
A lot of encouragement and a lot of patience. When these shy students make an effort to participate in class, I really provide a lot of effort to reinforce their um, their efforts to participate. Minsan nga kahit hindi tama yung sagot, kailangan i-reinforce, kailangan ko i-acknowledge. And maybe as a teacher, I can also come up with an activity that he is more likely to take part in, and then always encourage and then process it with the child. So sometimes I can pull him out and then just tell him, you know what, I like it that you participated in the drama activity. Ang galing mo pala doon. So it's really, and telling the child, you know what, it made me happy. Labeling the emotion that it that how it impacted you, and maybe process with the child. How do you feel about it? Teach, medyo okay po, natuwa po ako kasi na-overcome ko po yung pagiging shy. So basically, if you want to shape behavior, kahit hindi perfect po yung behavior na pinakita, pero ang importante po, acknowledge the behavior, praise the child. If you can provide reinforcements, that would be better. It's also important if you tell the child how it made you feel. That's also a reinforcing um, strategy. Also, minsan, just smile at the child or pat in the back kasi minsan ayaw nila yung pinapansin sila or minade mention mo, mas lalo sila shy away. And I want the teacher parents to refrain from noticing the child when they are bad or when they're not showing good behaviors. Isa yan sa mga strategies ko lagi. Notice and pay attention and reinforce your children when they're good. Make them pansin when they are showing you good behaviors. Kasi karamihan sa parents, napapansin lang yung anak pag may maling ginawa. So, please pay attention to your children. Reinforce, acknowledge, and tell them how they made you feel for such small gestures. Yun po.
Thank you, sir. And our last question is from Dana Aguinaldo. Ano po sa tingin niyo ang posibleng epekto ng social media sa behavior ng mga kabataan? Lalo na po ngayon na napakalaki ng role ng social media pati sa kanilang pag-aaral dahil ito po ang paraan para makapag-connect tayo sa isa't isa.
Thank you. To be honest, this is my stand. Before, I feared technology. But now that we are using technology and I see its benefits, I'm learning to love technology. But it's very important that there are certain limits that parents need to impose on their children. Number one, if this is related to academics, nakakapagod rin po kasi sa mata, and then yung making an effort to sit and focus. So I think that we need to limit our screen time. That's one. Number two, if it's in relation to parang games or leisure time, kasi yun na ngayon yung leisure ng mga kabataan eh. I will still agree to that magaganda po yung mga games, meron po dyan educational that you can use to connect with your lessons. Pero sana limited. What is ideal is to expose your children sa gadgets for 2 hours. Yun yung sinasabing max. Pero ako po, to be honest, kung kaya ng 1 hour, 1 hour is better and use it as a reward. Pwede mo kasing ilagay sa schedule mo, anak, today we will do reading, math, and then if you're good at reading and math, you can have 1 hour TV time or 1 hour gadget time. So make them earn it. Hindi yung basta-basta lang nagkaka-access sila. Dapat gamitin natin yon as a reward for them to work hard. Kasi yung mga bata po ngayon, dapat po natin silang turuan na we need to work hard to get what we want and it's not easily available.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question from Jen Alejandro. How to teach children to be self-motivated?
Oh, okay. Motivation is both extrinsic, external, or internal. If we're looking for externally motivating a child, then we can look into the child's interests. Sometimes there are children na wala talaga silang interest. So we go for internal motivation. And usually that is the relationship. So to work on that is really to build that rapport with the student na gagawin ko po itong pinapagawa ni teacher dahil gusto ko maging masaya si teacher. Gusto ko irespeto si teacher, kailangan sundin yung ginagawa niya. Or you can do a combination of both. Sometimes you use rewards, actual items, privileges. You use a pat in the back or a smile. And pwede rin internal. Pero ako po, baliktad ako. I start with the internal. Kasi yun nga, ayaw ko na sinunod ako dahil natakot. Ayaw ko sinunod ako kasi feeling niya wala siyang choice. But sinunod ako dahil yung respeto, dahil yung relationship namin. Dahil I want Teacher JB to be happy or Teacher JB is fun to be with. So you capitalize on your relationship. Build that positive relationship with your student. Positive language, positive behavior. At ikaw yung mauna. Kailangan pakita mo sa kanya. Kasi yung mga bata, they look up to role models. Pag nakikita nila, ay si teacher kahit hirap na sa akin, nagtatry pa rin, dapat ako rin magtatry. So it's, you're co-regulating, you're really motivating each other. Kasi hindi pwedeng si teacher lang, hindi pwedeng student. It's really a back and forth of positive relationship and communication between the parent, teacher, and the student.
That's all the questions we have for now. Any last reminders to our viewers for today po, sir?
Siguro, my last would be, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share what I know. For parents out there, it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to teach your children, especially that you are in your comfort zone. I hope that you won't give up and I hope that you learn from today. Marami ako nasabi, pero siguro one word, relationship. Build on that. Build on relationship with your students or your children. Communication, modeling is key. That's all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this very eye-opening and insightful learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, sir. And to all
Thank
our
you.
Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Don't forget to register to get your e-certificate of participation. We also encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vibal Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.
Good day.